I want to talk more about how we have debated what is perhaps the most important issue of our day, healthcare, and the character and quality of that debate. I do represent a center on campus called the Center for Democratic Deliberation. We got a picture of there of when people deliberated differently than they do now. They wore different hats too, and they brought their dogs and everything. But, I'm not sure if that guy's yelling at the speaker or not, but we've seen a lot of yelling lately, and the question becomes: is that disruptive, or is that part of our legitimate democratic heritage to yell at politicians? Anybody at the Arlen Specter Town Hall? See how? Oh, you were there.
Out in the line.
You'll have to. Oh, you didn't get in, huh? We'll have to. Did anybody? You got in to the thing, so we may ask you your impressions of that. Is our center's dedicated to, and it's something that we've thought important for a long time, improving the quality of public discussion of important issues. And the good news for us is a lot of people agree with us now after witnessing some of the town hall meetings that took place last summer. Most of us at the center are trained in a very ancient tradition. The word rhetoric was used in my title, and I hope you don't have only the negative connotation of that term. Rhetoric is an ancient art taught in ancient Greece. It was born with democracy in ancient Greece, and the reason it existed was to teach people how to participate in a democratic system as citizens. Now, of course, that was a different kind of democracy than we have. We have a much more diverse democracy. We have a much more rowdy democracy than existed in ancient Greece. And so our traditions are somewhat different. And people are always asking me, well, you know, isn't that anti-democratic? Isn't that disruptive to shout at politicians? And I answer no. One of our projects, for example, that was mentioned is called Voice of Democracy. This is an online repository. We just opened it, so there's not a lot of stuff up there yet, but it's a collection of speeches and debates throughout American history and critical analyses of them and what they have contributed to our democracy over the years. And this is one of our logos, and if we look at some of the people that we picture on here, they're the kind of people you would see in anthologies of great American speeches. Are all of these people part of that kind of tradition of civil, decorous, polite discussion? No. If you recognize some of them, we have Malcolm X, who was hardly the model of civility and decorum. We have. Does anybody know? We should give a prize for anybody that can name all these people. You see Cesar Chavez, who is a labor leader that stirred things up quite a bit, right? So who else? You're good.
Shirley Chisholm.
Somebody recognizes Shirley Chisholm up there. Yeah. She actually was a kind of classically trained speaker in the sense that she made reasoned arguments and evidence. It wasn't a kind of wild, flame-throwing stump speaker, what they called the spellbinders early in our history. But up in the corner to the left there, you see Alice Paul, who arguably did more to get the vote for women than 70 years of women before her by being confrontational, standing in front of the White House, calling the president all sorts of nasty names,
sent to jail,
provoking riots, sent to jail, went on hunger strikes. So again, the point being, some of the others that would be described as disruptive, I guess, would be Wilma Mankiller, the first female head of the Cherokee Nation. Yeah, that's the name says it all. And there's your old friend John Kerry up there protesting against the war in Vietnam. So disruption, angry speech even, is part of our democratic rhetorical tradition. Yet people seem to think something really different happened in these town hall meetings. So I want to just throw some questions out there that we're going to discuss a little bit today. I'd like to hear your views on it as well. But I'll say a few things first. We did these town hall meetings and the broader protests, the so-called teabag protests. Did you watch those on TV down in Washington? Yeah. Did those represent something new and different in American politics? How have similar strategies of disruption been used historically and to what effect? I think I've already sort of answered my view on that a little bit for you. No, they're not new, but we do want to reflect a little bit more on their effect. What are the legal, ethical, and practical political implications of such strategies and tactics? And finally, what do the use of such strategies and tactics tell us about the health of our democracy? Anybody got an opinion they want to jump in with right away? Is this a healthy democracy, or does this point to some problem? And the Democrats that I spoke to, of course, always wanted to know what's the best way to respond to those sorts of things. Some of you may have seen Barney Frank's answer to that question. Did you see that?
No.
Oh, well, I'll talk about it. I don't think it's a good way to respond. Well, let me start with Arlen Specter, who commented after the town hall meeting in State College he had never seen people so angry. Now, how old is Arlen? He's old, she said. He doesn't remember a lot of things. Do you remember times when people were more angry than they are even now? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and you can go back throughout American history. I mean, before the Civil, of course, the Civil War is probably not a good example, because they were so angry they killed each other. But what?
Revolutionary War?
Yeah, I mean, we have a history of that kind of thing. But even in his lifetime, you can think of, he was alive during the McCarthy era, right? He was alive during the 60s, the days of rage. He was alive when people were punching each other out in gas lines when Jimmy Carter was president, right? You know, there's been a lot of anger in American politics. So for him to say that seems sort of strange. One of his aides actually said something more accurate. We have a long history of yelling at politicians in America. So I think that's probably a lot more accurate.